Every parent wants the best for their child. They want their kids to be healthy and happy, but most importantly, parents try to protect their little ones from the outside world as much as they can. Not everyone has good intentions, and you never know what kind of person your kid is going to come across. Once St. Louis' mother tried her hardest to protect her 2-year-old daughter. The woman would always keep an eye on her and make sure the girl was in safe hands when she wasn't around. Sadly, one day her worst nightmare came true when she realized that not only was her child being watched by a group of strangers, but they also left a note for her. When the mother read it, she was at a loss for words. Ginger Keith was residing in St. Louis, Missouri. Her daughter Vivian was born healthy and discharged from the hospital shortly after her birth. Ginger adored her daughter and devoted most of her time to raising her. Keith always made sure her daughter was safe and sound, no matter where she was. Sadly, what happened one day was beyond her control. Ginger and her daughter had been inseparable since the day of her birth. The two would go on walks, read books, and watch cartoons together. Ginger felt on top of the world with her baby daughter by her side. The first 2 years since Vivian came into Ginger's life had gone by fast. The two made many amazing memories together, and the woman couldn't wait for what the future had in store for their family. Raising a small child wasn't as difficult as the Keiths thought it would be. Vivian was a common, happy child most of the time. Unfortunately, soon they received some devastating news about their daughter. It all started when Vivian and her family were celebrating her 2nd birthday. The girl appeared to be tired despite getting a good night's sleep the night before. But what worried Ginger the most was something else. Vivian's skin was extremely pale. She was falling asleep and waking up every half an hour or so. It was an immediate red flag when the girl refused to eat anything. That day, Ginger started to get worried and decided to check her daughter's temperature. The thermometer showed that Vivian had a fever. Ginger was in disbelief. How did she not notice it before? At first, she thought it would have been a mistake, so she rechecked it again. The numbers were identical. The girl had a high-grade fever. Ginger knew she needed to act fast and wasted no time taking her daughter to the hospital. Ginger felt anxious during the entire ride to the hospital. Millions of questions were running through her mind. Did Vivian have the flu? Would she make a fast recovery? Shortly after arriving at the hospital, Vivian was examined by the doctor. Ginger thought that her daughter had the flu and wanted to hear the doctor's instructions on how to treat it properly. Little did she know what she was about to find out. Since Vivian was very young, Ginger needed to know how to treat fluid toddlers to avoid further health problems. However, for some reason, the doctor looked very concerned during the examination. He also performed some additional tests that weren't even relevant. What was going on? Ginger was getting worried as she anxiously waited for him to reveal Vivian's diagnosis. The doctor had a sad look in his eyes. Ginger instantly realized that something was utterly wrong with her daughter. Then he turned around and told her something that made her heart sink. Vivian had acute lymphoblastic leukemia and required immediate medical treatment. Ginger was at a loss for words. She couldn't believe that her 2-year-old baby girl had cancer. Then the doctor revealed something even more devastating. Ginger required chemotherapy and had to stay at the hospital for an unknown amount of time. The girl had to remain in isolation in her hospital room. During the treatment, Ginger was heartbroken by the news and was prepared to fight until the end. But what happened after a week of her daughter being in the hospital shocked her to the core. Vivian's only form of communication with the outside world was through the window of her hospital room. She would spend hours watching everything that was happening outside, and soon she caught someone's attention. A group of construction workers that were working below her window quickly noticed the little girl. They would often watch Vivian as she stood next to her window and observed the outside world. At first, Ginger didn't think much of it, but as time went by, she started to get concerned. It was slightly creepy to her that a group of men would spend that much time looking at a child. What did they want from her daughter? Ginger was getting fed up with the strange behavior of the construction workers. She decided to stand nearby while Vivian looked out her window and watch what they would do. She figured that if the men were up to something sinister, they would immediately stop after seeing her there with Vivian. To her big surprise, the men didn't stop looking at Vivian even after seeing her mother next to her. Instead, they smiled and waved at both of them. Vivian happily waved back at the construction workers as they continued doing their work. That was when Ginger realized something. It seemed like Vivian and the workers had established a daily routine. The girl would wave at the man, and they would wave back at her. Ginger was relieved that construction workers didn't mean any harm. But what happened to her daughter a couple of days later blew her mind. One day, in particular, had been very tough for little Vivian. When she and her mother looked out the window to get some fresh air, they noticed a sign outside. When Ginger read it, she instantly burst into tears. The message said, "Get well, soon." Ginger put the pieces together and realized the construction workers to whom her daughter had been waving to all these days were the ones who wrote the note. The woman was quickly touched by their sweet message and grabbed her camera to take a photo. The two construction workers who wrote the note to Vivian were called Travis Barnes and Greg Cones. They were part of the crew working in the hospital. The two men would often wave at the children who were watching them out their hospital room's window, hoping it would make their day a little less painful. Vivian, who would always wave back and smile, instantly caught their attention, and soon they got the chance to meet the little girl. Shortly after Vivian met the two workers that she befriended during her time at the hospital, the men were just as touched as Vivian's mother was. It touches you. It sets you back for a minute. You realize how good your own life is, said Travis Barnes. They were glad that they could cheer up the little girl even further for a little while.